Ur Kaśdim, commonly translated as Ur of the Chaldees, is a city mentioned in the Hebrew Bible as the birthplace of the Jewish patriarch Abraham. One of the traditional sites of Abraham's birth is placed in the vicinity of the Assyrian city of Edessa. Some Islamic and Jewish authorities, such as Maimonides and Josephus, placed Ur Kaśdim at various Assyrian or southeast Anatolian sites such as Urkesh, Urartu, Urfa. A Kutha.Recent archaeology work places the location in present-day Nasiriyah, Iraq, where the ancient Ziggurat of Ur is located. Ur Kaśdim in tradition. Jewish Ur Kaśdim is mentioned 4 times in the Tanakh, with the distinction Kaśdim, usually rendered in English as of the Chaldees. Quote, in Genesis, the name is found in 11:28, 11:31 and 15:7. Although not explicitly stated in the Tanakh, it is generally understood to be the birthplace of Abraham. Genesis chapter 11 verses 27 to 28 names it as the birthplace of Abraham's brother Haran, and the point of departure of Terah's household, including his son Abram. In Genesis chapter 12 verse 1, after Abram and his father Terah have left Ur Kaśdim for the city of Haran, God instructs Abram to leave his native land. The traditional Jewish understanding of the word Molday is birthplace. Similarly, in Genesis chapter 24 verses 4 to 10, Abraham instructs his servant to bring a wife for Isaac from his Molday, and the servant departs for Haran. Islamic. According to Islamic texts, the prophet Ibrahim was thrown into the fire in Ur Kaśdim. In the story, the temperature of the king's fire was reduced by God, saving the life of Ibrahim. While the Quran does not mention the king's name, Muslim commentators have assigned Nimrod as the king based on Jewish sources, namely the Book of Jasher. Historic beliefs on the location of Ur Kaśdim. Lower Mesopotamia. Ammianus Marcellinus in his Rerum Gestrum Libri mentions a castle named Ur which lay between Hatron and Nisibis. A.T. Clay understood this as an identification of Ur Kaśdim, although Marcellinus makes no explicit claim in this regard. In her travels, Egeria mentions her lying 5 stations from Nisibis on the way to Persia, apparently the same location, and she does identify it with Ur Kaśdim. However, the castle in question was only founded during the time of the Second Persian Empire. Eusebius in his preparation for the Gospel preserves a fragment of the work concerning the Jews by the 1st century BCE historian Alexander Polyhistor, which in turn quotes a passage in concerning the Jews of Assyria by the 2nd century BCE historian Euphorlemus, which claimed that Abraham was born in the Babylonian city Camarina, which it notes was also called Uriah. This site is identified with the Sumerian city of Ur located at Tel el-Muqayya, which in ancient texts was named Uriwa or Urima, while his identification of Ur. In 1927, Leonard Woolley identified Ur Kaśdim with the Sumerian city of Ur in southern Mesopotamia, where the Chaldeans were to settle in much later times. Around the 9th century BCE, Ur lay on the boundary of the later region called Chaldees in the 1st millennium BCE. It was the sacred city of the moon god, and the name Camarina is thought to be related to the Arabic word for moon Qamar. The identification of Sumerian Ur with Ur Kaśdim accords with the view that Abraham's ancestors may have been moon worshippers, an idea based on the possibility that the name of Abraham's father Terah is related to the Hebrew root for moon. The book of Joshua says, Joshua said to all the people, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Long ago your ancestors, including Terah the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods. While his identification had become the mainstream scholar opinion on the location of biblical Ur Kaśdim, despite the earlier traditions that Ur Kaśdim should lie in northern Mesopotamia, while his identification was challenged with the discovery of Haran in northern Mesopotamia, near the modern village of Altınbaşak in modern Turkey. Urkesh in upper Mesopotamia, for instance, makes a much more plausible candidate for the origin of Ur travel via Haran to Canaan than the Sumerian city of Ur. T.G. Pincher's identification of Uruk. T.G. Pincher's in the Old Testament in the light of the historical records and legends of Assyria and Babylonia. A.T. Clay, writing in the 1915 International Standard Bible Encyclopedia article, Ur of the Chaldees, understood this as an identification of Uruk with Ur Kaśdim. The Jewish Talmud identifies the biblical city of Uruk with a place called Urkesh. However, no tradition exists equating Ur Kaśdim with Urkesh or Uruk. Upper Mesopotamia. Jewish scholarship identifies Abraham's birthplace as somewhere in Upper Mesopotamia. This view was particularly noted by Maimonides. Nevertheless, this interpretation of Molde's meaning birthplace is not universal. Many Pentateuchal translations, from the Septuagint to some modern English versions, render Molde as kindred or family. Tradition of Urfa. The traditional site of Abraham's birth according to Islamic tradition is a cave in the vicinity of the ancient Seleucid city Edessa, now called Urfa. The cave lies near the center of Urfa and is the site of a mosque called the Mosque of Abraham in Urfa. The Turkish name for the city, Urfa, is derived from the earlier Syriac and Greek Omicron Rho Alpha. The tradition connecting Ur Kaśdim with Urfa is not exclusive to Islam. The 18th-century anthropologist Richard Pocock noted in his publication Description of the East that this traditional identification of Ur Kaśdim with Urfa was the universal opinion within contemporary Judaism. Urkesh. According to some opinions, Ur Kaśdim, the city from which Terah and Abraham migrated to Canaan, is identified with the site of Urkesh, the capital of the Hurran kingdom, now in northeastern Syria. It is further hypothesized that the biblical travel of Abraham's kin from Urkesh to Haran in order to reach Canaan is much more reasonable than a travel from the Sumerian city of Ur.